The Mystery of Funan's Disappearance. Theories on its decline and replacement by Chenla. Introduction. The Vanishing Empire. Imagine a flourishing maritime empire, a bustling hub of trade connecting the distant lands of India and China, its ports filled with exotic goods and its rulers recognized far and wide. This was Funan, the dominant power in mainland Southeast Asia for over 5 centuries. Yet, by the early 7th century, Chinese chronicles, our primary written sources, abruptly shift their focus, speaking instead of a new rising power. Chenla, a land-based state that seemingly absorbed its former overlord. What happened to Funan? Did it simply fade away, or was it violently conquered? The transition from Funan to Chenla is one of Southeast Asia's enduring historical mysteries, sparking various theories among scholars. Let's delve into these explanations, from environmental shifts and economic changes to internal strife and military conquest, to understand the enigmatic disappearance of Funan and the ascent of Chenla. Chapter 1. The Conquest. Theory: a violent overthrow. The most straightforward and traditionally accepted theory, largely based on early interpretations of Chinese chronicles, posits a direct military conquest of Funan by Chenla. Chinese annals as primary evidence. The Chinese dynastic histories are crucial. They state that Chenla, initially a vassal of Funan, progressively increased its power under ambitious rulers like Pavavarman and especially Chitrasena. The Sui Shu explicitly mentions that by 598 CE, Funan was still independent, but later accounts describe Chenla as having conquered Funan and made it its vassal. King Isanavarman I, Chitrasena's successor, is specifically credited with the complete subjugation of Funan between 612 and 628 CE. Military superiority. Proponents of this theory suggest that Chenla's land-based military, perhaps better suited for warfare in the forested uplands and equipped with a strong, disciplined army, might have overwhelmed Funan's forces, which may have been more focused on naval power and trade protection. Funan's internal weakness. This theory often aligns with the idea that Funan was already weakened by internal strife and succession disputes. A powerful, unified Chenla could easily take advantage of such a fractured state. The usurpation of the Funanese throne by Rudravarman in the early 6th century is often cited as a period of significant discontent that may have fueled internal divisions, making Funan vulnerable. While Chinese records provide a strong narrative of conquest, modern scholarship has sought to explore the underlying complexities of this transition beyond a simple military takeover. Chapter 2. The Ecological and Economic Shift Theories. Beyond military might, some theories emphasize environmental changes and economic transformations as key drivers in Funan's decline. Shifting trade routes. Funan's prosperity was fundamentally linked to its position as an entrepot controlling maritime trade between India and China. One theory suggests that improvements in sailing technology, particularly the ability of ships to sail directly across the South China Sea without needing to stop at Funanese ports, could have significantly diminished the economic importance of Funan's deltaic trading hubs like Ox-Eo. Alternatively, shifts in global or regional demand for specific goods might have reduced the profitability of Funan's trade. Siltation and environmental changes. The Mekong Delta is a dynamic environment. Over centuries, natural processes like river siltation could have made Funan's port cities less accessible to large ocean-going vessels, thereby crippling its maritime economy. Changes in river hydrology, perhaps due to climatic shifts, could also have impacted agriculture or made land travel more difficult. From maritime to agrarian focus. This perspective suggests a fundamental shift in the regional economy from maritime trade to land-based agriculture. As Funan's trade diminished, its economic base weakened. Chenla, being a more landlocked state with a strong agrarian foundation, was better positioned to thrive in such a changed economic landscape. Its focus on controlling fertile inland territories and their agricultural output would become the new source of wealth and power. These theories do not necessarily negate military conflict, but suggest that underlying economic and environmental vulnerabilities made Funan ripe for decline, regardless of direct conquest. Chapter 3. The Evolutionary Transition Theory: Continuity and Transformation. A more nuanced perspective, favored by many contemporary scholars, views the transition from Funan to Chenla not as a sudden collapse and conquest, but as a more gradual and complex process of political evolution and cultural continuity. Overlapping cultural and religious traditions. Archaeological evidence and inscriptions suggest a strong cultural and religious continuity between Funan and Chenla. Chenla rulers adopted many of Funan's Indianized traditions, including its blend of Hinduism and Buddhism, Sanskrit language, and even dynastic legends. This indicates a succession and absorption rather than a complete overthrow and replacement of culture. Political decentralization. Some scholars argue that Funan might have been more of a network of loosely connected polities or a Mandala-style state rather than a highly centralized empire. As central authority weakened, various regional centers simply asserted more independence and eventually came to dominate. The conquest described by the Chinese might have been more of a gradual process of political realignment and the shifting of tributary relationships. Internal power struggles, leading to a northern shift. It's plausible that powerful families or factions within Funan, perhaps those with connections to the northern hinterlands, gained ascendancy. Baba Varman I, the first major Chenla ruler, may have had connections to the Funanese royal family, suggesting an internal dynastic struggle that led to a shift of power from the delta to the more northerly, land-based regions. Reinterpretation of Chenla. Some historians, like Michael Vickery, argue that Chenla might have been a Chinese designation for a region or a collection of smaller polities, rather than a single unified kingdom that conquered Funan. In this view, the disappearance of Funan could mean the end of its prominence, with various successor states, including those later called Chenla, emerging and competing. This theory emphasizes that the cultural and societal fabric of the region persisted, even as political power shifted from one dominant center to another. Conclusion: an enduring enigma. The mystery of Funan's disappearance and its replacement by Chenla remains a subject of ongoing archaeological research and historical debate. Was it a dramatic military conquest, an inevitable consequence of changing trade patterns and environmental factors, or a subtle organic evolution of political power? The most likely scenario is a combination of these factors. Funan, weakened by internal strife and possibly impacted by shifts in global trade routes or environmental changes in its delta heartland, became vulnerable. This vulnerability was then exploited by the ambitious and militarily effective rulers of Chenla, who, through conquest and assimilation, gradually absorbed Funan's territories and its rich cultural heritage. Regardless of the precise mechanisms, the transition from Funan to Chenla marked a pivotal moment in the history of Southeast Asia, shifting the locus of power from a maritime empire to a land-based kingdom, and setting the stage for the eventual emergence of the magnificent Khmer Empire. The story of Funan's end is a powerful reminder that even the most formidable civilizations are subject to the relentless forces of change. What theory do you find most compelling, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe. Thanks.